Many fans believe that because Darth Vader was conflicted, torn between the light and dark sides of the Force, Luke Skywalker was able to defeat him in Return of the Jedi. However, that's not actually the case when we take a look at the lore. To make a long story short, by the time of the Battle of Endor, Luke was already the most powerful Jedi of all time. I know that may sound ridiculous, but Luke inherited all of Anakin's Force potential and then some. Both Vader and the Emperor were shocked by Luke's strength in the Force. In the Legends book Shadows of the Empire, Vader stated multiple times that he believed Luke to be the most powerful Jedi ever after they fought in The Empire Strikes Back. In the novelization of Return of the Jedi, Vader even realized that he had no chance of defeating Luke in their duel. So how does this all make sense? Luckily, we can take a look at all of the information presented in these two books to understand why Luke was more powerful than Vader, and thus why Vader could not defeat him in Return of the Jedi. Initially, Vader pondered their duel on Bespin, how he had tried to strike Luke down merely as a test. But although he had attempted to defeat Luke, the boy had somehow held his own, and their duel had excited Vader. He was thrilled to meet a worthy opponent, and he felt pride that the one so strongly opposing him was his own son. He had felt Luke's anger, and he knew that if Luke accepted the dark side, he would become more powerful than himself and the Emperor. As Palpatine focused on the construction of the second Death Star, Vader was not confident in the ability of the new superweapon. After all, much to Vader's satisfaction, it had been Luke of all people that had destroyed the first Death Star, proving that the most powerful weapon in the universe was the Force. As tales of Luke's exploits and growing abilities reached him, Vader became even more confident that he could turn him to the dark side. He knew he could because he had felt the dark side rise in Luke before. He had felt the power of Luke's anger. The boy had lost control once, and he could be free to do it again. Each repetition became easier. The dark side was a path that grew wider and deeper each time you walked upon it. Soon, it would be no effort at all for Luke to allow the dark side to rule him. And the Emperor agreed with Vader that Luke had much power within him. It was raw and untrained, but it was vast. His potential was larger than the Emperor's, larger than Vader's, but it was still only potential and not focused energy. When next they met, Vader would still be more adept, still the master. He would defeat the boy and bring him to the dark side. When that happened, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. None would dare oppose them. All would bow before them. Worlds would tremble under their approach. Sometime later, Luke and Vader nearly crossed paths, and Vader had felt his son's presence in the Force, much stronger than it had ever been before. Luke appeared to him as a powerful locus in the Force. Vader thought of how he had exterminated the remaining Jedi with his own hands, but he realized that he had not yet destroyed the strongest of them all, Luke. As Vader sought to master the powers of the dark side, growing more powerful as a Sith Lord, he was pleased to learn that the Force still held surprises for him. The dark side, like a fire, could warm or burn, and great care needed to be taken not to trip and fall into it. Vader thought of how Palpatine had become deformed and disfigured by his own power within his Force lightning, but Vader vowed that that would never happen to him. He would truly master the dark side, and the key to that goal was Luke. Once he finally turned Luke, the process would go faster. Together, they could manipulate the Force quicker than either could alone. The boy was so strong. Vader wondered who could have known that his own son would turn out to be the most powerful man in the galaxy. That fact caused Vader to smile. As Luke and Vader began to duel, the Sith Lord was impressed with Luke's speed. He was pleased by his son's newfound skills after training with Yoda. Vader thought of his plan to train Luke in the ways of the dark side so that they could destroy the Emperor and rule together. But before he could continue his thoughts, Luke attacked him again, more aggressively, using a flurry of lunges that should have been too advanced for him. Vader retreated a step at every slash, swiveling his blade back up to meet Luke's, but Luke batted it away, pushing Vader back even further. Vader lost his footing and was sent backward down the stairs by a powerful kick. As Luke stood above him at the top of the staircase, Luke knew that the duel was in his hands. Vader's life was his to take if he wanted to. Looking up at his son standing over him, Vader realized for the first time that Luke could actually defeat him. He was astounded by the strength Luke had acquired since their last duel on Cloud City, not to mention his timing, which had been honed to within the breath of a single thought. It was truly an unexpected and unwelcome possibility for Vader. He felt humiliation seep into him as he experienced the realization, as well as surprise and genuine fear. At the thought of being beaten by his own son, Vader's emotions gave way to blind rage, and he wanted revenge. Later in the duel, when the moment finally came that Luke was unable to control himself any longer, he attacked Vader with a frenzy that neither warrior had ever experienced. As their lightsabers clashed, it was evident to both of them that the advantage belonged solely to Luke. He pushed Vader backward, pursuing him relentlessly and without restraint. Blow after blow, Luke forced the Dark Lord to retreat, each strike of his saber pummeling Vader until Vader was on his knees, and then Luke removed his hand at the wrist. Vader was completely at Luke's mercy, beaten and wounded. And you guys know the rest. So, just to recap, to get the point across, when Luke kicked Vader down the stairs, Vader realized that Luke was stronger than him and could genuinely beat him. Compiling that with the descriptions of the fight from the novelization, where it's blatantly explained that Luke always had the upper hand and was beating Vader the entire time, it should be clear that this was a genuine victory for Luke, and Vader was trying his absolute hardest in the fight. But Luke was still too powerful for him at this point, and he defeated him using his new skills. So, all of these different thoughts from Vader really caught me by surprise. Obviously, I'm the biggest Luke fanboy, and you know that if you've watched the channel before, but I had never seen anything in the lore officially state that Luke was the most powerful Jedi ever. I've seen people comment this before and tell me how it was officially stated that Luke was the strongest Jedi ever, or the strongest Force user ever, and I would always ask for a source and ask them where that was stated, but nobody could ever give me an answer. That's why I was so surprised when I was reading this book. Shadows of the Empire really goes out of its way repetitively to state how powerful Luke is, and how much Vader respects his strength. To see it stated multiple times that not only was Luke considered the most powerful man in the galaxy by the time of Return of the Jedi, but that Vader also considered him to be the strongest Jedi ever is honestly insane. Even though this lore is now part of the Legends continuity, I still think that it's amazing and a true testament to Luke's strength as a Jedi Knight. We know that by the time Luke was a Jedi Master down the timeline, he became incredibly powerful, to the point that most will say he was overpowered. It seems that the lore from Shadows of the Empire may have tried to go back in the timeline and retroactively emphasize his power during the original trilogy, in order to make his feats and abilities in the other Legends books seem more plausible. That's just my theory, but either way, I'm so glad that these details were provided in this book. Like I said, Luke is my favorite character in Star Wars, and one of the things that I always wanted to see outside of the 3 movies of the original trilogy was more of his powers and more of his strength, more of his training and all the stuff that he could do in the Force. I always wondered what he did after Return of the Jedi before I had ever read any of the Legends books, but the fact that Shadows of the Empire takes place between Empire and Return of the Jedi just makes this even more entertaining and interesting to me. You guys know that I love all of the additional lore that goes into different characters' thoughts during the events, and even though this is just a book and is not a novelization of the movie, I loved looking into Vader's thoughts on Luke and his power and his strength. kind of giving off the vibe that Vader had admiration for his son, that he really admired and respected how powerful Luke had become. I think that just adds more nuance and more complexity to their relationship and their final encounter in Return of the Jedi. Anyway, I don't mean to ramble on for too long. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did, and as always, may the Force be with you.